Geometrical and Mechanical Splendor and Sensitivity Toward Numbers by F.T. Marinetti. Geometrical and Mechanical Splendor in Words and Freedom. We have already attended to the grotesque funeral of conventional beauty, romantic, symbolist, and decadent, whose chief characteristics were memory, nostalgia, the mists of legend gathered through remoteness and time, fascination with the exotic produced by distance and space, the picturesque, the imprecise, the pastoral, solitude in the wilderness, every kind of disorder, shadows of twilight, decay, weariness, the ragged vestiges of bygone days, crumbling ruins, mildew, a taste for putrefaction, pessimism, tuberculosis, suicide, flirting with pain, an aesthetic of failure, adoration of death. Out of the chaos of new conflicting sensibilities, a new beauty is born this day, which we futurists will substitute for what went before, and which I name geometrical and mechanical splendor. Its essential characteristics are a healthy forgetfulness, hope, desire, unbridled strength, speed, light, the will, order, discipline, method, a feeling for the great city, an aggressive optimism stemming from passion for sport, and the toning of muscles. Untrammeled imagination, being here, there, and everywhere. Brevity and simultaneity derived from tourism, business, and journalism. A passion for success, a pioneering instinct for breaking records, the enthusiastic emulation of electricity and machines, an essential conciseness and compactness, the sweet precision of machinery and of well-oiled thought, the harmony of energies converging in one victorious path. My futurist senses become aware of this geometrical splendor for the first time on the bridge of a dreadnought. The speed of the ship, the range of its guns, set high up on the quarter deck, and that liberating air of a likely war, and that strange vitality of orders transmitted by the admiral, becoming autonomous and dehumanized through the caprice, lack of patience, and failures of steel and copper wire. All of these things are radiated geometrical and mechanical splendor. I heard the lyrical drive of electricity passing through the armor plating of its four turrets, descending by way of metal tubes to the powder magazine, drawing its howitzers as far as the breech, as far as its protruding barrels. Ray sights, point up, flash, automatic recoil, very personal launching of the shell, impact, crash, stench of rotten eggs, sewer gas, rust, ammonia, and so on. This new drama, which is full of unforeseen futurist possibilities and geometrical splendor, is for us 100,000 times more interesting than human psychology, with its very limited permutations, ambition, love, greed, nostalgia, friendship, betrayal, and its habitual 3 or 4 facial impressions. Great human masses, a sea of protesting arms and faces, can sometimes give us a frisson, but we prefer by far that great feeling of solidarity and an obliging motor that is utterly reliable and well regulated. Nothing is more beautiful than a great humming electric power station that holds water pressure as high as a chain of mountains, an electrical power as vast as the horizon, compressed into its 4 distribution columns, bristling with meters, control panels, and shining levers. These panels are our sole models for poetry. Their precursors are gymnasts and tightrope walkers. When the swelling relaxation and pulsating rhythm of their muscles demonstrate the sparkling perfection of precision instruments, and the geometrical splendor that we wish to attain in poetry through our words and freedom. 1. We are systematically destroying the literary eye, so that it is dispersed throughout the universal flux, and we are coming to the expression of an infinitesimally small and molecular agitation. Example, the meteoric shifting of molecules in the whole produced by a howitzer. See the final part of For Cheetah Tepe in my novel Zang Tum Tum. Thus the poetry of cosmic forces replaces that of mankind. We are abolishing the age-old values, nomadic, sentimental, and Christian, of narrative, by virtue of which the importance of a wound sustained in battle was greatly exaggerated in comparison with the weapons of destruction strategic positions, and atmospheric conditions. In Zang Tum Tum, I described the death by firing squad of a Bulgarian trader, using only a few words in freedom, while I greatly extend a discussion between two Turkish generals about the range of their guns and the enemy's cannon. Indeed, I observed the Dasuni battery of Sidi Mesri in October 1911, how the bright insistent volley of a cannon, made red-hot by the sun and by an increased rate of firing, makes the spectacle of mangled, dying human flesh almost negligible. 2. On many occasions I have shown how the noun, worn out by too much contact with, or from the weight of decadent Parnassian adjectives, regains its absolute value and expressive force when it is stripped and isolated. With regard to naked nouns, I distinguish between the elementary noun and the synthesis in motion noun, or not of nouns. This distinction, which is by no means absolute, springs from an intuition, which is well nigh impossible to identify. Following a flexible, all-inclusive analogy, I see every noun as a vehicle, or as a belt set in motion by the verb in the infinitive. 3. With the exception of the need for contrasts, or a change of rhythm, the different moods and tenses of the verb must be abolished, since they turn the verb into a rickety old wheel, which adapts to the roughness of the country roads, but is unable to turn quickly on a smooth road. On the other hand, the verb in the infinitive is the actual driving force of the new lyricism, being as smooth running as the wheel of a train or the propeller of an airplane. In the forward leap of hope and will, the different moods and tenses of the verb express a prudent yet reassuring pessimism, a narrow, episodic, and casual egotism, an upper and lower limit of strength and weariness, of desire, delusion, and complete rest. The verb in the infinitive expresses optimism itself, total generosity, and the delirium of becoming. When I say to run, what is the subject of this verb? Everyone and everything that is a universal profusion of life that flows around us, and of which we are a conscious particle, as, for example, at the end of Salon d'Albergo, Hotel Lounge, by the free-wording poet Folgore. The verb in the infinitive is the passion of the I that gives itself up to the becoming of all things. A heroic continuum, unconcerned about the effort and the joy of action. Verb in the infinitive equals divinity of action. 4. Using one or more adjectives isolated between parentheses or set beside words in freedom, behind a perpendicular line, or between curly brackets, one can give the sense of the different atmospheres of a story and the tones that govern it. These atmospheric adjectives or tone adjectives cannot be replaced by nouns. These are principles arrived at intuitively and difficult to demonstrate. However, I believe that by isolating, for example, the noun cruelty, or in the description of a massacre, placing it between curly brackets, one will be imbued with a cruel frame of mind that is fixed and firm in sharp outline. However, if I place the adjective cruel in parentheses or between curly brackets, I turn it into an atmospheric adjective, or tone adjective, that will envelop the entire description of the massacre without arresting the flow of the words in freedom. 5. Despite the deftest contortions, the syntactical sentence always implied a scientific photographic outlook that was absolutely contrary to the laws that govern the emotions. By using words in freedom, this perspective is destroyed, and we arrive naturally at a many-sided emotional perspective. Example, uomo, montagna plus vallata, man plus mountain plus valley, by the free word poet Boccioni. With words in freedom, we sometimes create synoptic tables of lyrical values, which make it impossible for us when reading to follow many different currents of introspecting or parallel sense impressions at the same time. These synoptic tables must not be thought of as an end in themselves, but as a means of increasing the expressive lyrical force. We have therefore to avoid attempting pictorial effects, or amusing ourselves by playing around with intersecting lines or unusual typographical distortions. In Words and Freedom, we must totally eradicate everything that does not aspire to express the fleeting, mysterious, futurist sensibilities by means of this most innovative geometrical and mechanical splendor. The free-wording poet Congiulo, in Fumatori II, second-class smoker's carriage, was very successful in suggesting the long, monotonous flights of fancy, and the outward spreading of smoke bedroom experienced on a long train journey with the typographically designed image. In their continuous attempts at expression through maximum force and depth, Words and Freedom are naturally transformed into auto-illustrations by means of freely expressive orthographical and typographical forms. The synoptic tables of lyrical values and typographically shaped analogies, as for example the typographically designed balloon in my Zang Tum Tum. As soon as this higher form of expression is achieved, Words and Freedom go back to their normal habitual flow. Moreover, the synoptic tables of values are the foundation of criticism. Using Words and Freedom, see for example Bilancio 1910 to 1913, Balance Sheet 1910 to 1913 by the free-wording poet Cara. 7. Freely expressive orthography and typography also have the function of rendering the facial expressions and other gestures of the narrator. In this way, Words and Freedom arrive at making use of and expressing perfectly all those qualities of communicative effusiveness and casual brilliance that are characteristic of the southern races. This energy stemming from a variety of tones, from vocal and facial expressions, hitherto to be found only among the most moving tenors or brilliant conversationalists, find their natural expression in the various sizes of typographical characters that reproduce facial grimaces and the incisive clear-cut power of our gestures. Thus, Words and Freedom become the lyrical, transfiguring extension of our animal magnetism, abstract onomatopoeia, and sensitivity toward numbers. 8. Our growing love for matter, the will to penetrate it and to know its vibrations, the physical bonds that tie us to machines, urge us to the use of automatopoeia. Sound which results from the rubbing together or the collision of solids, liquids, or gases at speed requires that automatopoeia, the reproduction of sound, be one of the most dynamic elements in poetry. And as such, automatopoeia can take the place of the verb in the infinitive, particularly if it is set against one or more other automatopoeias. Example, the automatopoetic ta-ta-ta-ta-ta of machine guns, opposing the yura of the Turks at the end of the Ponty Bridge chapter in my Zang Tum Tum. The brevity of the automatopoeic words in this case allows the use of the most versatile interweaving of diverse rhythms. These would lose part of their speed if they were to be expressed more abstractly, with more detailed development. That is, without the meditation of automatopoeia. There are different sorts of automatopoeia. A. Automatopoeia that is direct, imitative, elementary, and realistic, which serves to enrich poetry with a brutal reality, and stops it becoming too abstract and arty. Example, pick-pack-pum, rifle fire. In my Contrabando de Guerra, War Contraband, in Zang Tum Tum, the screeching automatopoeia C reproduces the whistle of a tugboat on the river Meuse, and is followed by the muted fee-fee-fee echoing from the farther bank. These two instances of automatopoeia meant I didn't have to describe the width of the river, for that is, in fact, defined by the contrast between the two consonants S and F. B. Automatopoeia that is indirect, complex, and analogical. Example, in my poem Dune, the automatopoetic dum-dum-dum-dum expresses the revolving sound of the African sun and the great orange mass of the sky, creating a relationship between sensations of weight, heat, color, scent, and sound. Another example is the automatopoeic stridinola stridinola, stridinolaire, which is repeated in the first canto of my epic poem La Conquête des Étoiles, which establishes an analogy between the clashing of great swords and the angry surging of the waves, before the onset of a great battle of water in a storm. C. Abstract onomatopoeia is the expression through sound of the most complex and mysterious of our sensibilities, even though we are not conscious of them. Example, in my poem Dune, The abstract onomatopoeia ran corresponds to no sound in nature or machinery, but expresses rather a state of mind. D. Psychic onomatopoeic arrangement. That is the fusion of 2 or 3 abstract onomatopoeic elements. 9. My love of precision and concentrated brevity have naturally given me a taste for numbers, which live and breathe on the page like living beings in our new numerical sensibility. For example, instead of saying, as with more or less all traditional writers, a deep, far-reaching tolling of bells, an imprecise and therefore ineffectual observation, or else, as would be an intelligent countryman, you can hear this bell from such and such a village or such and such another, a more precise and therefore more effective observation. With intuitive precision, I seize on the powerful sound of the reverberation and establish its extent by writing. Bell tolling extent 20 square kilometers. I thereby suggest a whole vibrant horizon and a number of distant beings who are listening to the same bells. I escape from the imprecise, the banal, and take hold of reality through an act of will, which subjugates and transforms in an original manner the sound of the vibrating metal. The mathematical symbols plus, minus, times, and equals can bring about some wonderful synthesis, and in the abstract simplicity of their impersonal mechanisms, they contribute to the creation of geometrical and mechanical splendor. For example, it would have required at least a whole page of description to portray this vast, complex panorama of battle that I have instead conveyed through the supreme lyrical equation. Horizon equals gimlet, most piercing some sun, plus 5 triangular shadows, 1 kilometer to one side, plus 3 diamond shapes of rosy light, plus 5 bits of hill, plus 30 columns of smoke, plus 23 blazes. I use the X to convey pauses for searching thoughts. Thus I eliminate the question mark which fixed its air of doubt too arbitrarily on only one aspect of consciousness. With the mathematical X, the pause for doubt is immediately extended over the entire assembly of words in freedom. In the same intuitive way, among the words in freedom, I introduce numbers that have no direct meaning or value, but that being directed by their sounds and by the eye toward our numerical sensibilities, express the varying mystical intensities of matter and the unfailing reaction of our sensibilities. I create some real theorems or lyrical equations, introducing numbers that are chosen intuitively and placed in the very center of a word, with a certain number of plus, minus, times, equals. I articulate the thickness, the prominence, and the volume of the things that the word must express. The arrangement plus, minus, times, for example, serves the purpose of communicating the changes and the increase in speed of a motor car. The arrangement plus, has the purpose of bundling similar equal sensations together. Example, the fecal stench of dysentery, plus the honey-like smell of plague sweat, plus the stink of ammonia, etc. In Trento de Soldati Ammalati, a trainload of 6 soldiers, in my Zang Tum Tum. Thus for Malarme ciel antérieur au floret la beauté, we substitute geometrical and mechanical splendor and the numerical sensibility of words in freedom. This manifesto appeared in 2 installments in La Serba, March 15th and April 1st, 1914. The French edition has a colophon, Milan Direction de Mouvement Futuriste, 11 March 1914, and a 4-page leaflet of the Italian edition is dated March 18, 1914. The manifesto was reprinted many times and exercised profound influence, not only on the mechanical art of the second wave of futurism in the 1920s, but also outside Italy, in Spagna Velosa e Toro Futurista, 1931. The manifesto was entitled Geometric Splendor and the Aesthetics of the Machine. The last reprint I am aware of was in Maria Goretti's Poesia della Macchina. The text translated here follows I Manifesti del Futurismo, 1919.